Overall, this is not what I planned. But you know what? We got there and I love it. So the waistband has been stuck in this machine for like a week. There's so many errors with it, and I'm genuinely questioning whether I need to add a waistband to this jacket after all. Maybe it's good without, but I do still want to get it off the machine, so I'll try again, but it might be without a waistband. I'm not guaranteeing anything. Hi, and welcome to Not That Deep, where we're not that deep, but we also realize it's not that deep. If you're new here, hi, I'm Tina, and if you're a returning viewer, hi, welcome back. I have just finished the biggest wearable I've ever made, and it's for myself. So I'm actually not doing too bad on my 2026 goals for this year, but boy has it been a journey to get here. I'm sporting my latest somewhat bomber jacket, somewhat cardi. I'm not quite sure what I'm calling it yet, but I love it. It's soft, it's cozy, it's warm. It's everything I needed it to be. Is it perfect? No. Is it riddled with mistakes? Absolutely. Too many. But I kind of want to share with you what that journey was like, because at some point I really thought it was just going to stay in the whip basket forever. So I had a bit of a yarn haul from Aldi during the Aldi yarn event, and I was inspired to embark on something new as a result. And I was really inspired to make what I thought was originally going to be a quilted puffer jacket. I put up a picture on the screen of what my drawing actually looked like. And I had all these grand plans. It was gonna be really cozy, not necessarily the most practical coat, but it was gonna look good. So, you know, why not? Anyway, I was originally struggling with how I was going to do the pinstripes on my original design, but I thought that's a problem for tomorrow, Tina. It's not a problem for now, so we'll crack on. And I set about creating the panels the only way I knew how, which is what I've now come to learn is the set-in pattern, where you sort of leave out a section for the armhole, and then the shoulder that eventually connects has a bit more of a curve that slots in. Anyway, that's kind of how my brain works. I kind of went on that journey and started basically freestyling with the bare minimum of measurements, how this was going to be put together. It was challenging because if you've been on this channel before, you probably know I'm not the best at following patterns, and that is one of my things I'm hoping to get better at this year. So I basically jotted down a few notes, I guess, of where I wanted to do the increases and put in some stitch markers to try and help me remember, and where I was increasing and decreasing and shaping. I mean, in the end, I probably kind of ended up winging it more so than anything, and sort of using one side as a mirror template for the other side, but it's kind of come together and I'm pretty pleased with it. So first of all, I say all of that to say, if my drawing is anything to go by, this looks nothing like it. But I still love it, and I'm still really proud of it. It's been an act of basically freestyling and problem solving the whole way, which is kind of what crafting normally ends up being, isn't it? But I've really enjoyed it. So just a quick story time of how the jacket ended up looking like this. I started, like I said, working on the front panel, then I started working on the back, which was basically a full length, basically the front panels together, but the full length of that, and then worked up, added a little bit of shaping, and then tried to do like some extensions for like the shoulders as well, still with some armhole shaping to allow for the sleeves when they eventually come in. But of course, I somehow managed to join the front panel onto the back panel in the wrong direction. I couldn't believe it when I saw it, but I'm so sure I checked and double checked. But somehow it looks like this. So anyway, I had to start the process of basically frogging my slip stitches to join the two and hopefully do it properly the next time. Now, when we got to the sleeve, I had like one skein of blue yarn left. So I asked hubby very nicely to check in the stores for me to see whether or not we could get any more. Now, he had a big I told you so moment because he had actually surprisingly told me to get more yarn. I don't know why I refused, and looking back, I'm not very happy with past Tina. But, you know, we are where we are. There was no more left in the stores, so ultimately I was now at a point where it was, no, that's not what happened. There was one blue one at the store. I was trying to keep tabs on how many I ended up using, and I think it was like 1.5 for the front, 1.5 for, well, for each of the front pieces, and then I think I used like 3 on the back. It was a bit of a guzzler, and I did this all in double crochets. It's all in double crochets. So my husband checked the store, he came home with one blue skein, but that one he found was not enough. So I had to change tacks. I started using the white yarns that were originally supposed to be the pinstripe to start the sleeves. Now I've started the sleeve and I've realized that I've got halfway up the sleeve and that's one skein. So, and I think I only had 2 skeins of white yarn from the beginning. So I decided to use the other one for the other sleeve because to try and keep some sort of symmetry, I was kind of trying to work in parallel. So I've got 2 half sleeves now and no more yarn. I think I've got 1 skein of baby blue yarn left, but again, that wasn't going to do both shoulders or upper arms, if you like. So I had to head over to the store, and there I found this plushie yarn. But what ended up being the case is that the whites they had weren't really white. They didn't match this white either. This is more cream than it looks on camera, and the ones that they had were like a stark white. Wasn't really helpful. The blues they had didn't really match this blue. And then the ones that kind of did were like in a completely different size. So again, it kind of threw off what I was working with. The closest yarn I found that matched the vibe of what I was already working with, which meant I could still use the same size hook I was previously using and try and again keep everything looking somewhat cohesive, was this navy. So again, there was a design change. I just had to go with it. Oh, we're gonna do the hungry caterpillar? All right, let's do that.
Okay.
Let's just stand here. Let's just get to it.
This is all extra. I don't need all of this. So now, this thing is even unnecessary. I recrochet it so that there's less waste. I need all of this though, so, or should I just leave it there? Maybe I'll just leave it there. I'll leave it here. But now all of this is free yarn. Now, when I was done with all of this, you may have seen my last video, but I managed to somehow magically acquire 3 knitting machines. So obviously they had to play their part. and I'm so glad they did. But actually there were times where I honestly thought, what am I doing? Why have I done this to myself? But in hindsight, it was actually such a learning curve and such a lesson. I've learned so much about the machine so far and still obviously have loads left to go, but let me show you what I did with the machine. My seaming is a little bit off because at the point of seaming up my sleeves, I no longer had any white yarn, and the navy I thought was going to be too dark. Although in hindsight, again, I probably could have used the navy for the upper arm and then figured out something for basically, you can see baby blue yarn through some of the stitches, but that's what I've used to do the seaming. My cuffs have been machine knit on my new knitting machine, and I absolutely love how they're looking. Like, so pleased with them. They were a journey as well, because when I first got my knitting machine, someone kindly told me that I was probably using the yarn I was using for the knitting machine was probably on the thicker end. And while I appreciate that information and try to honor what I was told, when I got to doing the cuffs, I had a choice between a really thin yarn that was going to be machine suitable. It kind of matched the size of it kind of matched the color of, like, in between these two. So it would have worked color wise, but vibe wise, it wasn't really doing it for me. It was too thin, didn't have much structure, and quite frankly, I don't know, I didn't like it, so I changed my mind. And the closest I had in my stash was also this yarn from Aldi, which is a DK weight yarn in the color blue. And honestly, it's much thicker than I should have been using on the machine, I know, but I had a lot of weight on the combs when I was working through it, and it worked out, and I'm still really impressed that it did. And I love the finished look. Originally, it was supposed to be a bit more of a folded cuff, so sort of like this. But after asking my husband what he thought, he chose the longer cuff, and it also meant less stitching, so longer cuff it was. And do you know what? I actually really like it. Nice and long. I feel like it's, again, cozier. I don't know, I like it. And then I decided to do very similar for the waistband, and oh my goodness, at this point, like, practically everything is done bar the waistband, and the waistband made me work. Oh my gosh, it made me work, it made me work, it made me work. I did some basic measurements using one of the cuffs as a swatch, and my calcs said I needed about 217 stitches. Now my knitting machine bed is only 200 stitches wide. So the thinking was I was going to have to do 200 stitches and then do an extra 20 stitches to sort of like tack on. So I started with the whole bed cast on. Now I have never used the whole machine bed. Like, so this was going to be a first. And not only was I using the whole bed of the machine, I was doing that with a ribber. It was not happy at all with me. The yarn was too heavy, it jammed, it was carnage. It was absolute carnage, and I almost gave up. So I started casting on and it didn't seem very happy. Had my weights on the ribber comb, and I don't know, it was really heavy. Like, I don't know, it didn't like me. I don't know what I did to it, but anyway, we got through to like 10 stitches in. Bearing in mind, I think I did 30 rows for the cuffs. So I was hoping to do 30 rows for the waistband, like just to keep things cohesive. I got to like 10 rows and my machine said, do you know what? Had enough of you, had enough of this yarn, had enough, full stop. Everything just went pear-shaped. And honestly, I stepped away from the machine. I needed a bit of a break. Like, it was just a bit much. I think it sat in my machine for about a week before I decided, you know what, this is ridiculous. I want to try other things on the machine. So this has got to come out. Anyway, what didn't happen whilst I was using this machine? So I had all my weights on, like I said, and I would be trying to sort of pass the carriage along, and I was met with some of the most aggressive jams that I have seen on a machine today. Bearing in mind, obviously, I'm very new to these machines, so it's not been a long time, but they were bad. They were bad jams. They really were. And I ended up having to, I don't know, I'm a bit of a, so I was fiddling with the machine, so like it would jam and then I wouldn't be able to move it, so I would try and twist the, I can't remember what it's called, but the knob that turns you from single motif to normal knitting to carriage release. I think those are the few acronyms I remember. Anyway, I mistakenly went and did that whilst trying to relieve a jam, and that made things like 100 times worse. So now I'll be pushing the carriage and then I would have to like pull individual needles forward. Anyway, I say all of that to say I ended up going through this long-winded chat with my AI partner, and AI actually helped me release this jam. So I actually am grateful for AI, because otherwise, yeah, this probably would still be stuck on the machine, or I would have given up altogether and this jacket would have been Sun's waistband. So, you know, it did its part. I am grateful.
Turns out that when I turned into the single motif, I think it was, part of the knob, basically some levers came down within the carriage and they had like the gooey zombie glue stuck in there. So I had to like clean that out properly and with rubbing alcohol, and then lubricate it and then get them moving again, and then things were fine.
At that point, I decided to go as far as, I believe it was 16 rows on the waistband, and things looked like they were just gonna go sideways. I gave up. I took it off the machine. It was absolutely not perfect. It was riddled with mistakes because you could see where it had dropped stitches. I tried to put them back on, it missed rows. It was, yeah. But you know what? It's a waistband. It's not super obvious. I've learned so much from the process. Really grateful. I have a jacket. In hindsight, things I've learned, oh my gosh, it makes so much more sense now when you hear people talking about cast on waist yarn, cast off on waist yarn. This is referring to the knitting machine. Because, oh my goodness, I keep casting on and off straight onto the ribbing comb, and it's just so difficult having to weave in and out of the stitches with the machine while it's still on. In my head, it was going to be easier. It's not. I've learnt my lesson. That's not happening again. And then, finally, I think during the week off, I decided, or I was passing by one of the shops and decided to get some buttons for my project. It's going to be my short list. I'm either going to do 4 buttons of the right or 3 buttons of the left, because I can't seem to find any more out of this batch, and I've literally just brought the yarn to compare against it. and that's all I got. So I'm gonna release those and leave it there. These are the buttons I got for my jacket. I tried them on, well, not properly, but sort of sampled them.
I've attached the waistband. Still need to clean up the yarn, as you can see. And I've got out the buttons that I got yesterday. So these are our options. Dark blue option. I can never remember which way it's supposed to be. Anyway, as a template, it would be like that with the dark blue situation, which I could do, or light blue where it's kind of like hidden. It's not really obvious, but like that. You can barely see anything. But anyway, yeah, like that instead. And I'm at a point where I kind of think I prefer it without. Like just a throw on cool girl borrowing my boyfriend's kind of jacket situation.
And I'm still in two minds. I think out of the two sets, I may go with the contrasting one. But I'm still not 100% sure whether it needs it. I kind of like it without, but then looking at pictures of the sample, I do still think the contrast wins. But this is where I would appreciate your help. Do you think I go with contrasting buttons, sort of light wash buttons, or leave it as it is? So I say that to say it's not necessarily completed. I do still really like it, even without, and I cannot wait to wear it. In fact, I'm actually going to wear it out in just a second. But what do you think? Also, I was on the fence. Do I need to I've heard so much about blocking, and I thought, okay, I'm going to block this project. But then I thought, this is Chanel yarn. Like, how do I block this? Again, I asked AI, apparently with steam. But does it need it? I don't know. What do you think? Do I need to do that? If I do, again, I can try, but I'm just really scared and worried I'm going to melt it. And that would be so sad after all this time and energy. So, you know what? I'm going to wear it out today. And if you guys say I need to block it, then I'll try. At least I would have got somewhere out of it. But yeah, it's been a journey, to say the least, with this thing. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of the journey, the end product, and my query about whether or not to add buttons. Do I leave it as it is? Do I add them? What do you think? And also, if you haven't, subscribe so that you don't miss what I'm up to next time, because yeah, we need to make something else now. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.